All right, folks, a lot of people ask me about just some of the ways that I go fishing and the practical, easy ways I go fishing around the Metroplex and how I take kids fishing. So I wanted to tell you a little story about how I learned this technique and why I do catfish bait this way. It's one of the easiest things you'll ever see. It's not anywhere near as messy and gross as a lot of like dip baits and punch baits and things like that, or soured beans in your backyard or anything like that. This is a lot less gross and easy to do on a pitch, okay? So how this all started. Me and a fellow named Gail Maynard and another guy named Keith Purdue, we were out catfishing. It was in the wintertime. I can't remember. Air temperature was about 50 degrees or so. And we did catch a lot of fish, or they caught a lot of fish, I should say. But I went out there early. I went out about 4 in the morning, and I had learned how to throw a cast net off of my kayak, which was kind of a trick in itself. But anyway, I was catching all these fresh shad. Now, everybody online, everybody I had read, all the biology and everything else, I'd even looked up stomach content samples and studies from Texas Parks and Wildlife and everything else. Everything says that these catfish all eat shad. So I was catching shad, and of course it's a little cheap kayak, so there's not like a live well. So I've just got a kayak full of water. Like there's 2 inches of water in the bottom of the kayak. Remember, it's 50 degrees, and literally just swimming around with shad. And I had like 100 shad swimming around me, chewing on my toes and stuff. And then when the other fellows got there, I had a high degree of confidence because I had done all this research, and I really just wanted to brag. And pride precedes the fall, right? So I asked Gail, what you using for bait? And he had stopped at a donut store and gotten some jalapeno cheese kolaches. And he halfway through by eating one of them. And I said, what you using for bait? And he goes, looks like jalapeno cheese kolache today. Puts a hook on it, pitches it in the water, bait. And I was like, I'm gonna beat him for sure today. And then I asked Keith, what are you using for bait? And a bag of salted wieners. I said, what? And he goes, yeah, it's hot dogs. They're salted. And the salt sucks all the water out of them. They become stiff, stay on the hook real good. And I was like, he's not gonna catch anything. I'm gonna catch everything, and then I'm gonna talk noise all day. Well, I did fresh cut shad. Fresh cut, I was tearing them half, cutting them. I did all sorts of stuff. Live ones, not live ones, half ones, did all sorts of stuff. And I don't think I caught anything all day. Jalapeno cheese and salted wieners caught fish all day long, okay? So I was like, what in the world? So I just submitted to the fact that some of these just really easy home kitchen techniques work really, really good. And my son loves to fish, but he's allergic to fish. So there's a lot of things that I didn't want him to actually touch, like shellfish, shrimp, crab, loads of other things. And there's also some stuff I didn't want in my house, like punch bait's gross. Like dip bait smells awful. If you've ever left that in your car or something, you know. And souring up beans for a week, that's all well and good if you're single. This is the easiest way to do this if you got kids and everything and you don't want it to be disgusting. So what you start with is Bar S weenies. This is the cheapest weenies in the world. You shouldn't eat them. And I found these even old weenies that are 50% off. So I think these cost me about 75 cents for a package of weenies. And I'm gonna cut these up. They are gonna shrink. So I cut them in pieces a little over an inch, like that. I'm gonna put them in a Tupperware or a gallon Ziploc bag. Now, like I said, we're using Osmosis for this, which is the diffusion of water, okay? If you remember back to high school biology, is the diffusion of water. Now, what I've got here today is salt and garlic powder. Now, you should also add onion powder to this, and what you're gonna do is salt them heavily, right? Use cheap salt. Salt is cheap. You go to the dollar store, just whatever dollar store cheap salt there is. Same thing with your garlic and onion powder. This does not, in fact, it should not be a good ingredient that you're gonna feed to your family or anything like that. This is just the cheapest kind of garlic or onion powder that you can get your hands on, dollar store or anything like that. Get a bunch of that powder on there. This is all dry ingredients, right? So they don't reek. And you're gonna just keep layering it up, right? Till you get a Tupperware full of these hot dogs and powder and salt and everything else. Get it all nice together. Put the top on it. I wrap that in plastic wrap so it doesn't reek. If you're gonna go fishing in the evening, just set these out all day and let them kind of sit. You can also leave them in the refrigerator, and what'll happen is by osmosis, because there's a lower concentration in the salt and powder, of water, then water will leave the weenies and diffuse out into the powder and salt. They'll shrink, they'll become harder, which is great. This is what you want because they stay on the hook properly during the cast. And when they hit the water, there's all this stuff for the catfish to smell, the onion and the garlic and the salt and the fat and other tissue things that's in these meat hot dogs. Then, and these are really fatty, greasy hot dogs. So that's starting to get in the water, and these catfish are gonna really smell it and come to it. And at the end of the day, then you don't have something disgusting. You can throw these away and just wash the Tupperware and do it again if you like. And there's nothing that says you have to buy a 5-pound bucket of punch bait. You can use half the package of weenies fish for the day, and then you've used all the bait. You don't have to take anything home with you and store it, right? So this is probably the most practical way to do catfish bait if you're just in the DFW area and you want to get into some catfishing. What do I use for bait? And if you get online, everybody in the world has got their own way of doing catfish bait that they swear is the only way, right? But it's not the only way. This is just the most practical way.